you feel ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Muridzo, for agreeing to be interviewed. I really appreciate your willingness to contribute to African social work. Please tell us who is Noel Garikai Muridzo.
Thank you very much for having me here. Noel Garikai is a social worker. During our days, you would only start with the diploma, then into the degree. So we would start with the diploma, and I finished it in 2000. From 2000, I then proceeded to doing the bachelor's, which was a general degree. But I would also say I had been offered the honors, but you would know your circumstance to school. So that pushed me into the general degree and to finish. I had started working for Renaissance Veterinary Hospital. So those circumstances and the drive to want to help my siblings pushed me into working and not the honors program. In 2003, I then started pursuing the Master of Social Work part-timing as a part-time student, which I completed in 2005, then graduated in 2006. In 2014 to 2017, I was at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, South Africa, pursuing a PhD in social work. So I would say that is the educational profile of Noel Garikai. But in terms of the practice profile, I would say that my practice starts in 2000. It starts when I'm a student, a third-year student. I then started working for a bank. The story is so exciting and interesting in that as a student, I had written in a local newspaper in Gweru, the Gweru Times, on the plight of orphans and HIV and AIDS. And Mr. Timber responded and started funding fees for orphans. My thinking and thesis at that point was, I thought it was possible for companies to be involved in the uptake and the care of children and orphans and vulnerable children. Because at that point, HIV and AIDS was an issue. It is still an issue, but at that point, we didn't have a treatment and at treatment. We also had more deaths. And these children were facing a number of challenges. And I felt I could make a difference through the newspaper articles that I wrote. And Mr. Timber did respond, and we started getting funding. And that gave birth to Munoti Daishe Trust, which was then assisting such children with educational assistance, health assistance, accommodation, and other needs that children would have. So that was exciting. So I was with Munoti Daishe Trust from 2000 up to 2011 when it folded. But I then also would also be working also for Family Support Trust from 2000, that very same 2000 to 2002. Then went to work for the bank full-time 2003. Family Support Trust is an organization that deals and works with survivors of child sexual abuse, and we'll talk about that later. So that was the profile. Then I went into academia in 2011 to 2013. I was with the University of Zimbabwe as a part-time lecturer. I had also tried to join Jacob. I remember we traveled together to Bindura for an interview for lecturing. Jacob was applying for full-time. I then was also, I intended to be part-time. And then the university said that they wanted to enroll full-time lecturers and not part-timers. And that's how I missed being his colleague at
Yes, I remember that very well. Thanks for reminding me.
So I was at UZ. Yes, we had a decision to say, do I leave to into lecturing at Bindura, but I then opted for the bank for obvious reasons. I then also pursued part-timing with Women University in Africa. You would find that some of the dates correlate. In 2011, you are at UZ, you are at Women University. This was also because at this time, you find that the persons with a Master of Social Work qualification were very few and far. So universities would then also come and ask people even to cross-teach. It's why we had this problem is we start with only one school of social work from 1964 up to 2010 when Bindura University, where Jacob was, starts offering social work training. So the history of social work and our history is also partly the reason why we have such CVs and interconnectedness. You also find that this is at the time where we have our own economic challenges and political challenges, and many left, including those in social work education, the people who were very much experienced and more learned, were pushed out by the circumstances obtaining in our country. You wouldn't blame them. The political toxic environment and the economic meltdown pushed many out of our country. This then resulted in shortages. And this is why you then find more and more people now leaving. And this pushed people like me and Jacob and others into education. You would find that it was not also by design. Sometimes we found ourselves by default in these circumstances and now having to teach in social work so that we keep things going. Yes, we had also our own ambitions. I remember our conversation with Jacob that we had wanted, it was in us wanting to pursue social education. And I believe Jacob also was with Epilepsy Foundation in Zimbabwe when he was pursuing his master's studies. So you find us working, but also in education and learning and also teaching. So I then joined the School of Social Work, Midland State University in 2018. And in 2019, I was asked to act as the acting director. Why? Because the director also had left. Because our environment sometimes pushes people outside because of the economic situation and other challenges. So I was asked to act in that capacity in 2019. In 2020, in November, I was then appointed as the substantive director for the School of Social Work. So this is where I am, Jacob, and the listeners, at the School of Social Work. The school, its history starts with the Jesuit fathers and Father Rogers establishing the school, and the legacy of social work in Zimbabwe and its history is never complete without making reference to that rich history, where then the Jesuits affiliate their programs to the University of Zimbabwe. Jacob and I are products of that legacy of the Jesuit fathers in their dream. The University of Zimbabwe then moves its program. It's still there and very strong, but the school is handed over to the Midland State University. The University of Zimbabwe is still training, Bindura State University, and the other universities are there. Now you have 8 also institutions now providing social work education in Zimbabwe, but all are linked to the Jesuit fathers and the School of Social Work and the University of Zimbabwe, and how that dream was then enhanced and put forward from 1964. So this is where I am now, Jacob.
Oh, thank you, Noel, for giving all those details, and congratulations on your appointment as substantive head of the School of Social Work at the Midlands State University. So before we move on to the next question, do you mind telling us about the programs that the school that you lead is offering?
Oh, thank you very much. Midlands State University has many programs, and the school is under the Faculty of Social Sciences. Our dean is Professor Hungwe. Our deputy dean is Dr. Mugari, and we are part of that university and the faculty. And as a school, we have a certificate in social work, which is just a para-social work program, helping those who are in the field, who work as assistants to social workers, who would want to have an appreciation of what social work is. We then also have the Bachelor of Social Work Honors Degree, which is a 4-year program, which started in 2018. Then we had our first group of students. We have a Master of Social Work program, and our programs are unique in that as a first, the school then introduced specialized programs where you have a clinical track. You also have a developmental social work track. When I talk about my model that I do appreciate, developmental in that the criticism around social work and its history has been that social work has been remedial. We need a relook at things, and informed by such thinking and the thesis that Mpetso puts across, it gave birth to this program. So we also have a developmental track in the masters. We are looking at introducing a master's in child protection, because this is important to us in Zimbabwe. Also, the history of social work anyway in Zimbabwe is linked to child protection, with the recruitment, remember, Jacob, of Mr. Kelly from the UK in 1936 to run the school attendance program in Zimbabwe. Yes, it was targeting the white children, but we are looking at child protection in general. We also want to look at school social work as a way of strengthening the life of children in schools and also enhancing their well-being. So we're looking at introducing that. We're also looking at occupational social work and the contribution that social workers can do. So we are looking at also even the generic social work program that we are accustomed to. We are looking at that. I'm also happy to say that we also have an MPhil program for social work by research. We also have the PhD in social work. So I would say that these are social work. To add on, we also have what we call the postgraduate diploma in social work. This is a program that came to be in Zimbabwe because of our problems. Because of the exodus of qualified social workers, we had a problem at one point where the country did not have social workers to work within the space. So a postgraduate diploma was introduced, targeting those from sociology and psychology, then giving them an orientation into social work, then they can also practice. So in Zimbabwe, social work is regulated. There's a Social Workers Act, and we have a Council of Social Work. And I'm glad to say that our minister, has announced new councillors coming on board. Francis Maushe is on council.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, he's also a new council. So Zinche Jacob is a neighbor of the Epilepsy Foundation in Harare. So in Hatfield, yes. So we have accredited programs, and those are the programs that we offer. Thank you, Jacob.
Oh, that's interesting. Thanks so much for providing all those details. It's interesting to see developmental social work being prioritized, as well as the MPhil. That's an important program. Thanks for sharing that with us. Let's move on to the professional associations that you have been involved with in Zimbabwe and beyond. Do you mind talking about that?
Oh, thank you very much. I am a proud member of the National Association social workers in Zimbabwe, NASWA, which is a brainchild of NASWA. I'm proud to be registered. I have been privileged by social workers to being their president of the association from 2011 to 2015. I would want also to acknowledge people like Boas, who held fought because of the exodus. There was a time where there was a gap in social work, and people like Boas kept on council going. And it is from that council that you get people like Boas saying, we need NASWA. For us to have a strong council that regulates social work, NASWA should be there. And anyway, NASWA had given birth to council, but NASWA had suffered due to social workers leaving, and there was no association. So the rebirth of NASWA was very important. I also remember you, Jacob, at Bindura, organizing World Social Work Day activities. There's also an article, if viewers would want to acquaint themselves, they could read articles that you did. There's also one in the themed production. International social work, they can find to know the activities that you were doing. And remember, this was, some of these things were even before the rebirth of NASWA. Then we get NASWA being reborn. So you have social workers and contributors. I've mentioned you, I've mentioned Boas and others coming together. And that rebirth, social workers entrust me as their president, which brought us to have many branches all over the country. I also remember visiting the school in Bindura where you were, and we were establishing, and colleagues there, including yourselves, giving us an office for the branch in that town to function. So it was an interesting period of the rebirth of our association. I was, because of that also, I then being exposed to IFSW, because we then had to rejoin IFSW and contribute. I then also was selected by colleagues in Africa to be the member at large. The constitution then had member at large. Now they call that position the vice president in the region. I then became president in 2016. At that point, I was also elevated to being the vice president for the global movement, IFSW Global, which was from 2016 to 2018, then re-elected 2018 to 2020. Currently, I am the regional president for IFSW, and a co-host of an African conversation that we are having. This conversation is hosted by Anstance, Joachim, and myself. It is an initiative that is trying to bring African voices, where we are discussing many things. Topical, of course, these days was the issue of COVID-19. What are social workers doing? What are the challenges? What are the issues coming up? And this is a platform where we talk about everything social work in the region. So I would also invite colleagues who are watching or who will listen to this conversation to also follow that conversation and get insights in terms of what is happening and what are social workers saying. It is also supported by BASWA, Children and Families International, Social Workers Association in Zambia. So I would urge colleagues to join in and have a feel of what we talk about. We talk about social work and everything. But why did we have that conversation? It was just out of a realization that many of our social work practices are not recognized, Jacob. And sometimes we are at fault. We don't say our story. We do great things, but we don't write them. We only write or talk about negatives. I'm not saying that we don't have negatives or that we are a bunch of angels, but where we do things good, we fell short. If you read Mupedziswa in the last article that he did, which is featured in the Africa Social Work, you find that he talks about the need to document. So it is from that we felt we should do that. So that's what we are doing, and that's the professional affiliation. What I would say is a takeaway from this conversation is that I got employed as a third-year student, and I started working in a bank. And during that time, people would say, "What are you doing in the bank? There is no social work in the bank." And I would remember Prof. Mpenzo would always say, and he says, where there are people, there is social work. So I would always quote Mpenzo to people and say, where there are people, there is social work. Students to say, remember when I said that I was given money by Renaissance, I was given 10% of the bank, which resources were not mine personally, but in trust for those children who were orphans and vulnerable. But I was just a third-year student. And it is not the only company that I had approached. Many had laughed at me saying, "You are crazy, this does not work," even executives. But it has worked. Look at where Capenham Trust is now. Look at what corporates and other corporates are doing. So my takeaway is for social work students to say, dream on, come up with innovations. You never know how life-changing those innovations will be. It can be what you will do or others will do. My second, don't stop reading. Don't stop learning. Yes, mistakes will come. That's the invest of life. The invest of life is humbling. The invest of life is painful because as you go on, you'll make mistakes. Yes, painful they are, but you learn from them. That's the invest of life. So I would say those are the takeaway, Jacob. And I would like to challenge social work students to be innovative, to challenge what is happening, to challenge what Jacob and I think is the in thing. Challenge it, come up with new things. I thank you, Dinotenda Siabonga. Thank you very much. And thank you, Jacob, for having me on this platform.
Thank you again for giving an account of yourself and also for telling us about your preferred model of social work. I'm sure our viewers will find this interesting, especially the students of social work.